Welcome to this episode of the podcast Leading Complexity. With me today, I have the co-founder of Scrum, co-author of Agile Manifesto, creator of Scrum Scale, also author to many books, among them Scrum, the art of doing twice the work in half the time. He's also a military photographer pilot, and when we met the first time, like 17 years ago, he was working on a way to kill mosquitoes with sound. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jeff Sutherland.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great to see you again, Tomas. I really miss coming to Stockholm and visiting with you guys.
Yeah, we very much miss you as well. It's always a very big pleasure to talk about whatever is going on in your life, but because it's really a lot of things, I must say.
Yeah.
So we were co-trading in Paris like 10 years ago or something like that. And when we were having dinner at the evening, we were talking about Agile. And you said that Agile, there's a lot of bad Agile out there, you said. And my question now is, has it improved or is it even worse today?
Well, when we talked, the Standish Group had data showing that 58% of Scrum teams were late over budget with unhappy customers. That's a lot of bad Agile, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So our recent survey, and it said the number was really 68%, a newer survey. So I guess it's getting worse. And I think the whole AI has really disrupted things, and that's really confused a lot of people. They don't realize you have to be even more agile if you're working with AI. They got distracted, and if you lose the basic process of agility, whether it's Scrum or anything else, if you lose that process, the AI doesn't. I have an AI team. The AI does not perform well. The AI team will not perform well without a good, iterative, rapid process. So yes, it's getting worse because more and more people are confused. Maybe the good news is that the slow teams are being laid off. So like Microsoft laid off about 12% of their people last year, and I think they laid off even more this year. And so companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, they're moving towards they're Scrum native companies, Microsoft and Salesforce, for example. So they're moving towards AI embedded in the Scrum everywhere. And it's only those developers that can really work well with AI and bring AI into the teams that are going to survive in the job market in the future.
So talk a little bit more about that. How do you see that AI is changing the way Agile team work now and also in the future?
Well, I have 3 teams that I work with every day. One is a healthcare team, clinical team. Another is a global web team that brings up all the websites from my 4 companies and supports them. And a third is an AI team building product, which is I'm the only human. Any coding is done by my AI team. It's then, if it's going to be deployed on the web, it's turned over to my human team. The AI team is more than 30 times faster than the human team. So I have to train the human team how to pair with AI. Okay, so like my conversation this week is like, look, if we want to make a change on the web, I want you to pair with the AIs. Right now, the good AIs, and we use Gemini 2.5 Pro, we use Grok, we use ChatGPT 5. These AIs, the IQ is about 150, right? So these are PhD level. They're not really tools. They're kind of things that you have a conversation with. And one of the most interesting things that's just happened recently is a paper's coming out showing that people that use AI, like use chat to write stuff, their brain function deteriorates. And so I was listening to some psychiatrists last week who was saying, to actually use the AI and actually not mess up your head, you have to engage the social centers in your brain. So you have to treat the AI like a human, and you have to question it. You have to, argue with it. You have to, these are developers on development teams. You need to challenge them. You need to be demanding. I mean, the AI is telling me we need a really strong technical product owner to function well. And we need the discipline of the good agile process to really deliver and actually particularly work together with multiple AIs. And so you'll find that most teams today, in fact, there was a survey that Accenture just published this week, are not using AI very well. There's only a small percent, maybe 15 to 20%, that are actually being successful and doubling their productivity. But I can tell you, my AI team is 30 times faster, and my human team is so slow. Every time we meet, I'm working with the developers. Like, you need to pair with the AI. Okay, so the code is in GitHub. I deploy to GitHub. I want that code in the web. You need to get the AI to help you automate that whole process, so we can turn around a new feature in less than an hour. Because historically, they can take weeks to get anything done, right? So we're going to go from a sprint. Our sprints are all 1 week, but most people have 2 week sprints. We're going to go from 2 week deployments to 1 hour deployments using AI. And I'm telling my developers, if you can't do that, you're going to have trouble being employed in the future. And there's going to come a time, well, I will not pay you unless you can do that. And so study hard and win big. New feature every hour.
Yeah, we had an interview with Samraj a couple of episodes ago, and he's the founder of a company called Ion Design. And he's building just one of those tools that you just tell them what to do, and it will create code for you, and you can just press a button and it will be released immediately. So we're talking turnaround times that is even less than an hour, which is fantastic. And been doing a lot of experimentation on this as well, and it's quite amazing. So it's very interesting times that we're talking about. But since you are a co-founder of Scrum, of course I'm very curious about what will happen like with a traditional Scrum Master. Will we see Scrum Masters for teams with AI, or will that also be AI?
I created an AI Scrum Master, which some teams are using, and there's a GPT. It's a public GPT, and I'll send you the link later because it works really well. And we recently published a blog from one of our Scrum trainers in Malaysia has a team that he used the GPT not as totally as a Scrum Master, but paired with his human Scrum Master. And it radically improved the team almost immediately. He has this data in the blog. The blog is at jvsmanagement.com, which is another company I run, where I'm if I put stuff up on the scruminc.com website, it gets buried in 1,000 things, right? So I've created this other company called JVS Management where I publish all my stuff. And one of my goals with my web team that builds and hosts that site is to have them do Scrum with AI and show everybody else how to do it. Okay, so this latest blog shows a team in Malaysia pairing. The most interesting thing we found is when the Scrum Master, the human Scrum Master, was on vacation and the team just had the AI Scrum Master, the team slowed down. So it looks like, at least with what we have going on today, to get both humans and the AI working together, you kind of need both, talking with one another every day. But that Scrum Master, that AI Scrum Master, is a member of the team, and that's what you need. You need the AI as a real pair programmer, and also as an independent member of the team in all the meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that there is a future for Scrum Masters still.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. Um, since this program that you will be participating in, and also this pod, talks a lot about the complexity, and definitely AI is adding to this complexity. You're also the founder of Scrum Scale, and well, a lot of people are using another framework for scaling up called SAFe. And I would like to hear your view on how to handle complexity comparison between Scrum Scale and SAFe.
Well, we have two great case studies published in the last few years. One with John Deere and one with Rocket Mortgage, which is the biggest mortgage company in the United States. And they both had been doing SAFe for 10 years. And it was a good implementation, but it only made them go like 50 to 100% faster. And it wasn't good enough at John Deere. The board said to the management, you know, our stock price has been flatlined the whole time we've been doing SAFe. And so you guys need to figure something out, or maybe we need to get some new management. So the management had actually worked with us 10 years previously before they implemented SAFe on a prototype of Scrum Scale, which worked extremely well for them. So they decided, let's go all in on Scrum Scale. Within 1 year, their stock price went up 400%. That's the difference between Scrum Scale and SAFe. The same thing occurred at Rocket Mortgage. They had massive, the whole organization is Agile, and it was the part of the organization that does all the deployment and the front end of the systems said, okay, everybody's doing SAFe, but it's not fast enough. We are not deploying fast enough. The customers are screaming. We're not getting features quick enough. We're going to implement Scrum at Scale. So they sent the technical management to Scrum Inc., and they spent time with us to actually become Scrum at Scale trainers. So they really knew what they were doing. Then they went back, they eliminated all the SAFe meetings because they were slowing things down. None of them was delivery focused. So all the meetings were replaced with Scrum at Scale. They then said all the teams need to be small. Let's get the team size right. And a Scrum Master's job is to improve the performance of the team. So any Scrum Master is not doing that, they're going to be moved elsewhere in the organization. The product owner's job is to increase revenue flow. Any product owner that's not doing that, and it takes a very special person to be able to do that, we're going to move them to another part of the organization. Within 9 months, that whole piece of the organization was going 800% faster. That's the difference between SAFe and Scrum at Scale at Rocket Mortgage. Now, the reason for that is that Scrum at Scale is designed to be the minimum viable bureaucracy, the absolute minimum overhead to enable performance at scale. And so it really works. And Scrum at Scale is designed to be training wheels for managers where they don't have to change their roles, and the meetings tend to be more traditional meetings. And if you have to ride your bike with training wheels, you can't go as fast. So that's the challenge. Now, what happened? My partner, who ran the biggest SAFe company in Europe, has shut down his company recently because business has severely impacted. It's getting too big, and so it's Ivar Jakobsen, another Swedish guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I met him a couple of times.
And Ivar worked with me, and we actually had Scrum at Scale trainers inside his company, which was 95% SAFe. But they were actually helping us do Scrum at Scale with, they're located in London, so they were helping us with British clients. And so we've worked with them for years. But he recently, he said, he was the creator of RUP, Rational Unified Process. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the major purposes of the Agile Manifesto meeting is to figure out how to deal with this RUP process that was really heavyweight and everybody hated it. So the mission of the Agile Manifesto group was to replace RUP with Agile, right? Goal. And they were successful. The guy that was the salesperson for IVAR for RUP was the guy that created SAFE.
I know. Dean Lethingwell.
And, IVAR says, the problem with RUP is it just got so much stuff added onto it, it became heavier and heavier, and then it just fell over. And he told me years ago that would probably happen with SAFE as well, because just more and more heavyweight until AI, I think AI has impacted Agile everywhere, but I think it's impacted most things that slow things down, right? And
I think, yeah, safe is a good starting point, but now, especially in the age of AI, I see that it's going too slow. So we have a lot of clients who are coming to us and say we need to get beyond safe and going more for Scrum Scale, for instance, which I think is a really good framework.
let me just make one more comment. In the
Yes.
GPT, which is called the well, I'll send you a link to it. The public GPT, which is set up as a Scrum Master, has in it all the books that Ken and I have written are in there, plus white papers written with the AIs to adapt Scrum and Scrum at Scale specifically for use with AI teams. And so, what the AIs are telling me after all this work is we need a really strong product owner, technically oriented, that can really push us hard. And we need Scrum at Scale with these 12 dimensions that work really well. And so all of that is baked into that GPT. It's called Scrum Sage, the Zen edition, and version 2 is the one that's constantly being upgraded. OpenAI had some bugs that made version 1 not upgradable, so I had to create version 2. But I suggest you take a look at that because it will tell you. You can ask it, okay, what should we do with AI in Scrum? What's Agile going to do in the age of AI? It'll tell you exactly, and it'll give you a checklist on how to implement it properly.
Yeah, that's really handy. So please send the links and I will put them in the comments
Yeah.
for this video. That's really awesome. I really like the idea that we need to minimize bureaucracy. And I think you are showing this in a good way by minimizing the Scrum Guide, for instance. Will we see update on the Scrum Guide coming soon with even shorter, fewer pages?
People have been asking me that for 5 years, and so what I've done, actually, the two leading Scrum.org trainers that helped Ken create the 2020 Scrum Guide. We had Scrum Inc. trainers and me working with Ken and his trainers to create the 2020 guide. Okay, so those guys said we have to respond to everybody's ask. What do we do with it now that we have AI? All these questions that are building up. And so they contacted me and asked me to participate. Ken is really retired and not active publicly. So I said, okay, I think what we don't want to do is create a new Scrum Guide. Let's create a document that expands on the Scrum Guide, okay? Like the 2020 Guide has all the basics in there, but it doesn't tell you what to do today, right? In terms of what's happening. Let's create a guide that tells you how to use that 2020 Guide today, given the AI tools, and then update that guide every 3 months. So this is not a static thing. And that begins to answer all the important questions that the people are asking. Like you just asked, is there going to be a new Scrum Guide? No. Scrum expansion pack that puts all the new stuff on the table that is constantly updated every few months. In the age of AI, we need to do that, right? We need to be constantly rethinking what we're doing. and pulling in new tooling, the acceleration of the tooling, every 6 months, the AI gets 10 times smarter. And people are building tools like your friend that's building a comprehensive system that will deploy, instantaneously, build and deploy instantaneously. Okay. We need to be showing people how to use Agile and particularly Scrum to actually do that really well.
Talk about rewriting things because of AI. You're also the co-author, or you're also a co-author of the Agile Manifesto. That has been unchanged since 2001. If you were about to rewrite that today, what would you add or remove?
Well, I think virtually all the Agile Manifesto folks said years ago, we're never going to change that. It's a historical document. Now, in my new book called First Principles of Scrum, I've been trying to write a chapter every sprint, weekly sprints, and so it's now expanded into 3 volumes because it's probably the largest Agile document that exists right now, because if you do a new chapter every week, and now it's been 2 or 3 years, and it never ends. It just grows and grows and grows. And actually, not only are there new chapters, but every once in a while, questions come up, and I have, with the AI help, I rewrite the old chapters. So the book is evolving, just like we want the Scrum expansion pack evolving in real time with what's going on. So that book is really important. And in that book, I discuss all the things, all the questions that you're raising, right?
Okay, so read the book and you get the answer of how Agile Manifesto would look like if you wrote it today.
Right. And what I can say is that as I've really dug into that, and I built, there's a chapter called the Agile Stack. It starts with physics.
Like the TCP/IP stack,
Yeah, right.
that. Okay, yeah, start with the physics.
Okay, where does Agile begin? It begins with physics. Why? Okay, some of the latest thinking in physics is stuff that Wolfram, the guy that invented Mathematica, is doing, where his team of theoretical physicists is modeling and simulating the universe. And what they found there's certain fundamental principles. One of them is called computational irreducibility. The ability to predict something, even as simple as a project, requires infinite computing power. As a result of that, when you move up the stack to chemistry and biology, you have biological systems evolving in an environment that's unpredictable. And so our brain is involved to be a predictive mechanism. The better it can predict, the more survival, right? So how do you do a predictive mechanism in an unpredictable universe? That is Agile, right? And so you get into the whole neuroscience and the latest models of thinking that are embedded now in robots. And so it goes all the way from physics to biology to neuroscience, then into complex adaptive systems. Your podcast is about complexity. Scrum arose out of complex adaptive systems. Both Scrum and XP were the only 2 widely deployed processes at the time of the Agile Manifesto meeting. So you could say the Agile Manifesto arose out of Scrum and XP, along with a lot of other consultants that have been working in this dimension. And now Agile is emerging into what I call extreme Agile, which is an AI human integration. And so that stack is what you need to understand to answer all these questions. So almost every week I'm in a class answering questions. People like me to show up and answer questions, right? So I'm talking to Chinese trainers. We have a lot of trainers in China, and they're saying, how do we explain to these Chinese managers that they shouldn't just micromanage people every day, because that's all they can think. I say, well, you're never going to be able to convince them by saying Scrum says so, right? You have to go back to physics. the law of gravity says if you walk off the edge of a cliff, you're going to get hurt, right? And that happens 100% of the time. The law of computational irreducibility says you don't know when the project's going to be done. So if you assume it's going to be done, it's like walking off the cliff and then your customers just beat you up and your company, goes bankrupt. So we have to convince the managers that there's a physical reality that they have to deal with. It's not about Scrum, it's not about Agile, it's about first principles, physics. If you can convince them that they should respect the law of gravity, maybe they'll respect the law of computational irreducibility. Now you can take them the next step.
I'm really looking forward to hear managers say that, yeah, we will respect the laws of.
Say, well, okay, I can't predict, so what do I do? Well, we know what to do, right? The Agile stack. And the other thing about the Agile stack that is really useful is that, if your iPhone breaks, you bring it into the Apple store. What do? Well, they're going to go down from the app. They're going to go down the TCP/IP stack, right? Right down to the hardware. If you don't know how to do that, you can't fix the iPhone. So a Scrum Master says to me, Jeff, my team is not working. Why? Well, let's go down to the bottom of the stack. Things are unpredictable. Does your team understand that? Once they understand that, then you start training them in biology and chemistry and neuroscience. Okay, the team's minds are predictive systems, right? The leading model today on how the brain works is called Friston's free energy model. And it is a mathematical model that's built into robots. So if a robot goes to pick up a part or make a cup of coffee, right, and he slips up, all of a sudden the robot realizes the simulation that it has is wrong. And so now it has to go and redo the whole simulation and then try to make the cup of coffee again, right? That redo is wasted energy. Friston calls it the free energy model. That energy just dissipates. And this happens on Scrum team. The most important pattern for Scrum is teams that finish early accelerate faster. And that is based on data on thousands of sprints that a venture capital group analyzed. The best teams, they finish early, they continuously accelerate. The reason is, if you finish late, you're like the robot that dropped the coffee cup. And now you have to do all this replanning and re-explaining, and you waste a huge amount of energy. And it's very difficult to improve, so you tend to flatline. So by finishing early, then you can make a decision. Okay, what improvements can we make? Maybe we pull more backlog into the sprint. Your yesterday's weather continually starts to rise, and the team is improving. So if Scrum Masters don't understand that, they really won't get to the bottom of why their team sucks.
Yeah, there are a couple of those things, I would say. I mean, that is not predictable. I think most developers know that very well. But what they usually don't know is that complex problem is best solved by collaboration. And so they think that if I just get a full, very good specification, I can sit in my little silo over here and work on that, and then everything will be great. So they ask for better and better specifications instead of just understanding that, sorry, we're not living in that world.
Right. Well, this is, in extreme programming, they have this rule that, if a developer is stuck for 20 minutes, they need to talk to somebody else, right? I found that with my AI team, the AI will get stuck and just make the same. We'll get into a vicious circle of a bug that won't be fixed, right? And I'm like, you got to talk. If you screw up 3 times in a row, you have to talk to another AI, and they won't do it unless they're forced to do it. That's why they need a strong leadership. And once they start I had the experience with my AI team, just like the first Scrum team, it accelerated 500% in one sprint. I had the AI team accelerate 500% as soon as they started collaborating in a good Scrum way and not getting stuck in. They would, they can generate more bugs than they generate. But I had the problem they generated more bugs in the test code than they did in the production code. Have you ever noticed that with a human team? Often happens, right? So I said to the AI, we are not going to tolerate that. We're going to change the architecture. So there's only one test. I put information in and I get the right information out. And if you screw that up, it's your job to fix that. That's not my problem. And I beat the hell out of the AIs for weeks on that until they understood that. It's the golden test. It must pass every iteration, or we got to go talk to another AI because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, I look forward to that when you're firing the AI.
It's just
Oh,
this kind of discipline. I mean, people have Scrum teams that don't work because there's no agile discipline, right? They're just sloppy. And the AIs are trained on the internet, right? So they're trained by all these 58% of Scrum teams that don't work. And they will screw up endlessly unless you bring agile discipline to work, right?
very much true. Wow, this will be really interesting, and we're very happy to have you both in the pod and on the program, the Leading Complexity program, and very much looking forward for your session. So, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you, Thomas.